What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 450 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week, where I'll be giving you a breakdown of some of the current events, rumors, news, gossip, and anything else that's gone down in the world of professional wrestling over the past few days that I feel like talking about. Who am I? I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, flying solo for this edition. It's going to be a kind of quick one. You can probably tell by my voice. Allergies bothering the hell out of me today, so I'm going to try to admittedly rush this a little bit. Normally I'm not a big fan of trying to rush episodes, but to be perfectly honest, not a whole lot of hot tags for us to get into a real deep dive about anyway. And there's another pay-per-view coming up this weekend. This Sunday is Extreme Rules, the horror show at Extreme Rules, technically speaking, I guess you want to call it that. So you're going to get another dose of us. You're also going to get another edition of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast that Callum and Rob had recorded the other day. They also did a dark cast, so there's another dark cast that's up there. So you're getting quite a bit this week, so I don't feel too bad about this being a quicker edition of Hot Tags. Of course, if I ramble for 20 minutes about how it's going to be quick, then it's not going to be really quick, is it? But yeah. So in any case, the way that we normally do things here is that I want to know what your opinion is about some different things too, not just my opinion. So again, for anybody who's not aware of these whole things and the way that these things work, you can't leave a comment on some of these things like Spotify and Stitcher and iTunes and all those platforms and stuff, but you can on YouTube, and YouTube is the preferred platform I would rather everybody kind of be on. Obviously all the kind of things that you listen to is all great, but you can leave comments on YouTube, and I am more of a fan of reading your comments than for people to just listen to it and just kind of be thinking things out into the void. So hop on over to the YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that as well. Ring that little notification bell, hit the like button on the video because that helps out quite a bit. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts on these kind of topics. And for that matter, anything else, because maybe I'll leave a comment and a response and, kind of keep the discussion going there. But, yeah, hot tags. This week it's a lot of kind of like show thoughts, whether it's WWE Network stuff or it's just the TV show stuff. Not a lot of other things in the news or in the gossip circles or anything. Like, I'm not going to do a real big, like, well, what happens if they don't do WrestleMania in Hollywood next year? Because it's like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. So who knows with any of that kind of stuff? It's just sort of the same topics that we've talked about quite a bit. So not going to get into that. Thankfully, there's not some big scandal things going on that needs to be addressed or any kind of like deaths or anything. I'm more of a fan of a week where we have not much to talk about than if we have lots of those kind of things to talk about. Obviously, I don't want any bad news. Bad news isn't good. But we have some show stuff to talk about. So let's just dive into some of those a little bit here. And while we're at it, let's start with WWE Chronicle Jeff Hardy. I was not the biggest fan of this special. As far as the whole see it or skip it scale, I would say skip it. I think that it's an important story to tell that Jeff Hardy has had these moments of reflection where he can kind of look back on his career and his life in general and see a lot of the mistakes that he's made and really kind of address that as something that he never wants to do again. But I've heard the story enough by now that, like, it sounds so harsh to say because it's like it is somebody's life you're talking about. It's not just like an angle or something like that, but every part of the angle is telling the same story. And we've heard the same story before from previous years and some different things like that. So it's like, I've heard it enough that another half an hour of him saying, well, I can't screw up this time, it's just not fundamentally the most entertaining special. Like I said, the subject matter, very important. Big fan of them discussing it, all that. But once you've heard it 20 times, the 21st time is not all that special. So if you are a diehard Jeff Hardy fan who can't get enough of that kind of stuff, go ahead and check this out. By all means, you're going to love it. If you're somebody like me who's kind of like, well, I guess I could have used that half an hour for something else or, whatever, then yeah, you don't need to check it out. There's no new revelations or anything that's like really going to change your mind, I'm assuming, about this. Either you've made your opinion one way or the other. Either you are kind of in the camp of that you don't necessarily trust that that's going to work out, or that you are willing to give Jeff Hardy a chance. I'm willing to give Jeff Hardy the chance. I think that this is hopefully the thing that finally like breaks through and he never goes back to that sort of a life. And I endorse all the help that he can possibly get with this, but the documentary itself, just not all that entertaining for me. So, yeah, I say skip it. I would also say skip the day of Backlash 2020. Not been a big fan of the day of specials. They're quick, so that's good. And it's better than nothing. Seeing a little bit more behind the scenes from Edge isn't bad by any means, but just nothing super special. It's just him saying like, "Oh, I'm preparing for the Backlash match," and then, "Oh yeah, I tore my tricep." So it's nothing really all that different. Like, if we were in an era where we didn't get this kind of information on the internet and then we had that, then yeah, that'd be so much better. But by now it's been a month and we already knew this, and it's nothing different. So I say skip that as well. But I would recommend seeing the R-Truth game show. This one was called Irish Bliss. It had Sheamus and Alexa Bliss on it, and it was the debut episode. And it's weird. I went from like thinking that this was really stupid to really liking it to not liking it in the same episode. And it's weird because that fluctuation wasn't necessarily a change in the product. It was just watching the full thing. So obviously, if you've been watching any kind of show and now during this pandemic era, you're watching these Zoom call shows, they suck in comparison. Like, they're not that good. It's not like you could do Jeopardy with a bunch of people on Zoom and that would come off super great. It's just, there's a different energy and a different presentation and magnetism and stuff to different types of shows. And WWE Backstage, I mean, you watch the way that they did that and then the way that they started doing it during COVID, and it's just not the same show. So the R-Truth game show, if they would have had a set, might be more interesting. But I don't really like that kind of presentation. And then I started getting into the actual, like, the meat and the bones of what is this show. And there were some jokes that were pretty funny, and they're like, R-Truth is being R-Truth. So he's messing around with people. He's given some weird point scales for different things. That was pretty fun. But by the end of the show, I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to watch another one of these. And in particular, I don't know if I want to watch 10 of these or however many that they had filmed. I know that they've at least filmed, I would assume, like 2 or 3 more episodes, because they've shown some people that haven't been on, and it seems like it's going to be two contestants per episode. So I'm assuming that there's probably 2 or 3 more, maybe even 4 or 5 episodes left. And I don't know. I'm like, is like the next edition like Natty and Drake Maverick or whatever, like, am I really gonna love it so much? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm gonna check it out though. I'll probably watch all of them because I watch pretty much all these specials, so I'll probably check them out and I'll tell you whether or not you should see it or skip it. But it's worth a shot right now to try. And if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. If you love it, you got more coming your way. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, how can I have even more coming my way from Smark Out Moment and from Smack Talk? Maybe you're thinking they haven't done Play the Game in a while and want them to do that. Well, I'll tell you how you can get more of that. The Patreon. Patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment. If you are so inclined to take advantage of the Pick Your Poison tier that's on there, then you can request any kind of a special feature that you would like us to do. And then sometime during that month that you donate and actually send your request in, then we'll do it. And even $1 goes a long way, especially the more people that do that. So, $5 and up, it's like ad block forgiveness essentially. And $10 and up gives you access to those dark casts. They're Patreon exclusive. So, for instance, if you want to check out that most recent one that's up, actually, it's going to be up, I think, later today, Saturday. And that's another edition of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast where Callum and Rob are reviewing Vengeance. So go ahead and donate to the $10 and up tier, because then you get access to those kind of things. And the more support that everybody shows for Smark Out Moment on Patreon, the more time that I can invest towards doing more for Smark Out Moment. I've mentioned this 100,000 times before. I'll mention it again, though. The same applies to Fanboys Anonymous, because fanboysanonymous.com is my other site where I do all the other things on the geek culture spectrum, like movies, TV shows, video games, comic books, the superhero genre topics, whatever it might be. that is where you're going to find that stuff. And I only ever have the time to do that stuff when I have the time to do it. So the Patreon for Fanboys Anonymous in particular is crucial to having more Fanboys content. And I really wish that I could get more into a lot of those things. But I know that a lot of people that listen to the Smark at Moment stuff are really only into the pro wrestling topics. So, obviously I would love to put out more for both things, but in particular, I'd love to do a lot more crazy different types of topics and stuff for Smack Talk, and I'm sure that you guys want that too. So if you got the spare change, by all means, of course, consider donating to the Patreon, and that'll help keep the lights on here. That'll help keep me going and keep me motivated and everything. And the same applies to the merchandise shops, TeePublic and Redbubble. If you go ahead and check out those, there are 3 shops apiece. For all 3 of them, there is a shop for A Mango Tees, Fanboys Anonymous, and Smark Out Moment. And they all have tons of different designs and tons of different products for each of those designs. I would love to have kept all my designs, but they take them down every once in a while and stuff. So you never know when those designs are going to go away because of somebody that just says, oh, that's a little bit too close to this copyright or something like that. But, take advantage of that stuff if you find anything on there throughout the catalogs that you're interested in purchasing. Thank you to everybody who has purchased things in the past and anybody who will in the future, because anything that you do to support this channel or Fanboys or anything under a mango tree is just greatly, greatly appreciated, even if it's just the fact that you're listening right now. Thank you for listening. Anyway, let's move on here. This is something that we haven't seen yet, so I can't comment on it, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to enjoy it. It's just a little note that maybe people aren't aware of. The next special on the WWE Network is going to be Undertaker: The Last Ride, Tales from the Deadman, and that is set to follow the Extreme Rules pay-per-view this Sunday, so I will incorporate that into the next round of the hot tags in some fashion, and I'll be checking that out Sunday night, Monday morning, whenever I end up getting around to doing that. But it seems like it could be kind of cool. I liked that documentary, and it seems like this one's mostly just like some oddball stories that they collected together, so thumbs up on that one. I like that. Let's see here. We have something about the main roster. Now, supposedly, of course, we don't know 100% for sure if this is the case because we've heard these kind of stories before. So take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But Vanessa Borne from NXT apparently was called up to the main roster recently, and that she just hasn't showed up there because they just haven't used her, or maybe she's chosen not to work during the whole pandemic, or whatever the case may be. The point is, she hasn't been on NXT in part, or if not in total, because she's supposed to be on the main roster now. I think that that's pretty interesting because number one, she hasn't shown up, so it's kind of interesting that for somebody like Dominik Dijakovic, he was supposed to have done that. Velveteen Dream was also supposed to have moved up to the main roster. We know that that might be because of other reasons why, but um, there's been lots of like, oh, this person's going up, etc. And not all of them have panned out. So I'm wondering now if the Vanessa Borne thing is true, or if that's just another one of those things where it wasn't actually true and it's just a rumor that has no foundation or whatever it might be. But it's also interesting because I don't necessarily think that Vanessa Borne would have been one of my go-to options for that. Now, this isn't to crap on Vanessa Borne here. I think that she's underrated in a lot of different ways, and she's got a lot of upsides to her, not the least of which is the Sexy Superstars tournament, which I should plug right now, I guess. We are in the finals, so Vanessa Borne's not in there, but she is somebody that I've always been backing as being like, how come more people don't vote for Vanessa Borne? Like, she's so pretty and everything, but yeah, the tournament is going on right now. It is the finals. They will end at some point next week. I'm not entirely sure exactly when I'm going to shut the poll off, but you have your opportunity now to vote on who you think are the best looking men and women in WWE right now between the 2 finalists on both those brackets. Go ahead and vote while you can. Make sure you get them in before I shut the poll off, because I don't know when I'm going to shut the poll off. Anyway, Vanessa Borne, I would have thought that Aaliyah, for instance, the other partner in the Borne and Bucci tag team, I think that Aaliyah has actually progressed quicker and further than what Vanessa Borne has. But maybe that's not actually all that strange, because there's this weird thing that goes on with NXT in the main roster where a lot of times if somebody has been successful in NXT, they're not successful on the main roster. And a lot of times if somebody hasn't been successful on the main roster or on NXT, they do better on the main roster. I don't know if this is one of those things that's like a planned sort of preferential treatment, or it's just sort of an unconscious kind of thing, but we've heard a million times that Vince McMahon prefers things that he thinks are his own. Whereas, if you can take a homegrown talent and you make them into something, then they're a WWE creation and then they're worth more. And if you take somebody from another company and that they've already built themselves up to a certain standard, then they don't get the same sort of treatment because, well, they're an outside thing. It's applied to TNA, it's applied to WCW in the past, it's applied uh, to the indies, whatever it is, but it seems like it's also applicable to NXT. So Tyler Breeze, for instance, he does pretty well in NXT. He wasn't world champion or anything like that, but he did pretty well. He was really well liked. Struggled on the main roster. Then you get somebody like Samoa Joe. He hasn't done as well on the main roster as he should. Robert Roode, pretty much pushed aside. Um, there's a long list of people like that. And then you get people like Alexa Bliss, who wasn't really a priority in NXT, did phenomenal on the main roster. And it took a while, but Apollo Crews doing better right now on the main roster than he did in NXT, that's for sure. And you know what? Maybe Vanessa Borne is one of those other people that they kind of look at as, well, she didn't really do a whole lot in NXT, but we can suit her better for Raw or SmackDown. I'm assuming probably Raw. But I would have thought that Aaliyah would have been stepping up next level a little bit quicker because she's been there longer and she seems to kind of have a little bit more of what they're looking for. But maybe it's just BS. Maybe it's not true at all. I don't know. If Vanessa Borne's heart's popping up on Raw, though, then we know that that's actually been the case. And you know what? I'm not 100% opposed to it. I'm not 100% thinking that it's going to work out super, super well, but I think that Bourne could find a better role for herself on Raw than on NXT. That's not without the realm of possibility. And I like Bourne enough that I'm willing to give them the opportunity to try to see what they want to do with her. And, what's worse that happens? She goes back to NXT. It's happened to other people, So go ahead and try it out. I think that I would trust more that the Raw side of things would know what to do with her than the SmackDown side of things because SmackDown is very, very heavily bogged down with this Bayley and Sasha Banks stuff. And I don't think that Raw is perfect as it is because they've been kind of sleeping on Bianca Belair and they've had plenty of other issues with plenty of other things. But you know what? If Vanessa Borne can go over to either of those and do better than NXT, then it's an upgrade. If it's the same as NXT, then who cares? What's the difference? And if it's worse than NXT, well, at that point, I don't know, but at least you tried 3 different brands. Try NXT UK next year or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm willing to give it a shot, and I'm interested to see what they do. We have to update the horror show at Extreme Rules card just a little bit, not too much, but it is something that I'm using for a thumbnail at the very least for this because it seems like it's a little flashy. Is that we know now that the bar fight is not happening at Extreme Rules. That is happening next week on SmackDown. And that we know that the only other match that they've added to the card is something that we've talked about on our predictions podcast, which is Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura against the New Day for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship and a tables match. They were oddly billing it as the winning team between Big E and Cesaro would be able to pick between a tables match and a steel cage match. I don't know where the steel cage came in because they've been doing just table related things. So that's just kind of weird to me. It kind of seems like they put an unnecessary, you get to pick between the thing you're obviously going to pick and something that has nothing to do with any of this. I feel like maybe they thought that was going to like pull something over on us and be like, oh, maybe they're going to go with the steel cage thing. No. So bad writing, but at least the tables match is going to happen. At least it doesn't have to change a whole lot of stuff about our predictions. I'm still 50-50. I could still see Nakamura and Cesaro winning the titles, but that's certainly not a guarantee because the New Day is the bigger priority tag team. They are the more flexible team to work with other people. So I guess maybe my opinion might change in the meantime, but for now I'm sticking on a 50-50 kind of split. And I guess if I had to go 51-49, I would currently go with Nakamura and Cesaro losing the match. But you asked me yesterday, then I probably would have said the opposite. You ask me tomorrow, maybe I'll say the same. I don't know. So let's talk about some of those TV show things. We usually do the rundown here. I'm going to just kind of give you my thoughts on all the episodes, I guess, this week. looking at Monday Night Raw right now, we had the MVP VIP lounge situation, which is leading us into a situation where we still don't know what's happening with Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre. Even now, Friday night, I kind of talked about this a little bit on the predictions thing. I think it's a little ridiculous that WWE has not announced what that stipulation is, but it's something that I'm assuming that is kind of halfway we don't know and halfway, well, if we have a mystery, then people might tune in, that kind of a thing. But we had a lot of filler on this week. Like, for instance, the Viking Raiders lost to Garza and Andrade. Bianca Belair randomly teamed up with Ruby Riott against the Iconics because I guess Liv Morgan's not available. So let's just put Bianca Belair in there. It's good that they're using Belair, but this is not really that they're using Belair. It's more so that she's filling in the blank on something. There was some stuff about Randy Orton and R-Truth. Later on, Randy Orton beat R-Truth, of course, and they set up the idea that he was going to punt R-Truth, and that was basically just a means to get Big Show to come out and then taunt that whole thing and set up the idea that the unsanctioned match is happening next week on Raw instead of at Extreme Rules. We talked about that, of course, in our predictions as well already. The eye for an eye thing we kind of talked about. A lot of the stuff for the Extreme Rules predictions kind of covered a lot of the things that happened on Raw, so I'm not going to really go down a whole list of a lot of things that we already talked about it before. Nothing's really changed. I'm not into the Seth Rollins feud any more than I was before. The Lashley beating Ricochet and then making Cedric Alexander tap out and attacking him after the thing. It's a lot of filler. Like, I didn't feel like this was a strong go-home show by any means. And the same thing when it comes to Bayley and Sasha Banks retaining the tag team championships over the Kabuki Warriors. Not really the best show. NXT was fun to see a little bit of confirmation of something that I had written up about a little bit. I wrote up a post recently about how the Robert Stone brand should bring Indy Hartwell in to kind of replace Vanessa Borne and kind of be like she and Aaliyah, the team that it seemed like they were going to go with for Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo. And look at that. We got Indy Hartwell beating Shotzi Blackheart with a little bit of help from the Robert Stone brand, including Aaliyah. So maybe they're going in that direction. I don't know. Maybe they read the article and they were like, oh, that's a good idea. If that's the case, cut me a check. I could write on the team. We had Keith Lee beat Dominik Dijakovic to retain the NXT and the North American titles. Of course, anytime that those two get in the ring together, that's great. Timothy Thatcher made an example out of Denzel Dejournette again. Or not again. I don't think that they've done that before, but he made an example of somebody again. That's what I should mean. Damian Priest and Cameron Grimes had their match, so that's something that's going on. Not the biggest, most important thing in the world, but at least they're following through with it. And Io Shirai retained the women's title over Tegan Nox and then was attacked by Dakota Kai afterwards. So Io Shirai, kind of a tweener at the moment. I don't think that they necessarily know where they're going to go with for her, but at least her direction is kind of interesting. And the Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai thing, we never got a real, definitive sense that they were going to be done feuding with each other. I think they're going to feud with each other pretty much perpetually. And Dakota Kai didn't attack Tegan Nox. She attacked Io Shirai, but, maybe down the line we get, Shirai against Kai, and then we get Nox and Kai against Shirai in a triple threat. Also on Wednesday, we got the AEW Dynamite special that was Fight for the Fallen. And to be honest, even though this might get me some flack, I thought that this was kind of a meh show. It wasn't all that great. Now, that's not to say that it's bad, because it wasn't, but this was not feeling any more special than a regular episode of Dynamite to me. Fyter Fest felt like it was more special, not only because they had a different set, but they treated it more like it was a pay-per-view or so. This wasn't. It was just another episode. The matches didn't seem like they were as big. The set, of course, wasn't anything different. So why is it any different from a normal episode of Dynamite, Cody defeated Sonny Kiss. We retained the TNT Championship. It's fine. FTR beat the Lucha Bros. It's fine. They had a whole thing with orange juice spilling on Chris Jericho. I've seen it before 1,000 times. It's not interesting anymore. I stopped caring way, way, way before 2020 about that kind of stuff. So once WWE has 20 examples of somebody standing in the ring or on the stage and getting something poured on them, it's nothing super like, oh my god, it's groundbreaking. It's not. It's orange juice this time. It's been poop. It's been green paint. It's been beer. It's been blood. It's been it's been a thousand things. So what's special about that? That's the kind of stuff that I look at AEW and I go, come on, guys, like all you're doing is the same stuff that WWE used to do. Do something different, you know? What else do we have? We had the Elite against Jurassic Express. That was probably the best match of the night. Nightmare Sisters beat Kenzie Page and MJ Jenkins. So there you go. We know where MJ Jenkins is going, at the very least for a temporary spot. And she seemed less impressive to me than she did in WWE. I don't know what the whole setup with that is, but I don't know. We had a whole thing that Nyla Rose has Vicky Guerrero as her manager now. I am not all that into that. She is just repeating the Vicky Guerrero character from WWE, and I'm assuming it's probably not going to be as good because they can't really capture lightning in a bottle, and I don't really want to kind of go through all that, I guess, again. And Moxley retained the title over Brian Cage when Taz threw in the towel, and then Darby Allin attacked Brian Cage, and I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like I don't know where they're going anymore. All Out is coming in like 7 weeks or so, September 5th, and I don't feel like there's an obvious number one contender. Now it could be MJF. He probably will be the number one contender as far as like the rankings go, but it could be Lance Archer. Or they could revisit the whole Brody Lee thing, or it could be Chris Jericho getting another title shot, or it could be Brian Cage getting another chance. I don't feel like any of that's really all that clear or strong of a direction. So I'm not loving it, you know? It's just not something that's making me go, oh man, I can't wait until the next show or something like that. I'm not feeling it right now. It's blasphemy to some, I know. Some people are like, AEW can do no wrong, but to me, this was a regular episode of Dynamite, and that is not something that I'm going to go completely gaga over. Sorry. Neither will I go completely gaga over SmackDown. We had some stuff that was kind of interesting, like we established the whole Cesaro and Big E type of thing. It's a tables match, whatever. I hated the A Moment of Bliss segment. There was Alexa Bliss saying that she was going to have some kind of a mystery guest. And the entire discussion became about Nikki Cross just being Nikki Cross. And I haven't been digging her character lately. I know. But then it gets even worse because Bailey and Sasha Banks come out. I haven't been digging that. And then it's just like, oh, no, it was Asuka and she wants to have a match. So then you have a tag team match. So, yeah, not great. Miz and John Morrison had some good little back and forth stuff about not wanting to fight Braun Strowman, who completely wrecked John Morrison. Doesn't make John Morrison look any better, but you know what? Nobody's going to remember this in a week or so anyway, so who cares? Bray Wyatt cut a little promo about the swamp fight. That's something that's not really all that fantastic, but it's something that just helped build up a little bit of hype, I guess. So I'm not really opposed to it. Lacey Evans beat Naomi. Then that was just a carryover from last week's awful stuff. So at least it was better than last week. I'll give them that. Kayla Braxton's back. She interviewed Jeff Hardy, and Sheamus attacked him, and they kind of went along with that whole story about doing the bar fight next week. And eventually we end up with AJ Styles retaining the Intercontinental Championship over Matt Riddle by pinfall. And then that leads to a handshake between the two, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then King Corbin attacks Riddle and Styles just sort of walks away. And it's just like, well, no, I fight. So I wonder if they're trying to slowly turn AJ Styles babyface, where it's kind of like he respects competition and kind of understands that he can go a little bit more in the direction of what Daniel Bryan was saying. I wonder if that's where they're going. I kind of like that. And that's the one biggest interesting thing that I found about this episode of SmackDown. So those are my thoughts. Those are the hot tags. We're in a little bit under half an hour here. And I want to know what you have to say about all these different kinds of topics. So again, drop your comments below. Tell me what you think. If you want to tweet at anything, you can tweet at SmarkOutMoment or at Tony Mango. Follow the Facebook accounts, of course, .com/SmarkOutMoment, .com/TonyMango, etc., etc. And stay tuned to everything that's happening your way on the website, everything that's happening on the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, ring that little notification bell, just click around, check the site, all the other kind of stuff that you would normally do, because who knows what's going to get posted when. We got the weekly articles, we've got the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, we've got anything else that pops up. I don't know. Sometimes it'll be on a whim, and I'll just be like, you know what, I'm going to do a small package on there or something like that. So just, stay tuned, keep showing your support. And I'll keep saying that you're awesome, because that's what happens when you do things that are awesome. And we will see you, of course, with the coverage of the horror show at Extreme Rules coming up this Sunday. And then, of course, the post show is going to happen after that. So stay tuned for that. And then we're going to roll along to next week, where we are going to do, obviously, another edition of the Hot Tags at some point. But then I don't know what else. We still haven't quite figured that out yet. So drop a comments below. Tell me your thoughts on what you would like us to do for the main event. And we'll continue keeping things on. And we'll see you then, everybody. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and I'm being counted out.